Welcome to the Macroinvertebrate station. My name is Hannah, and this is one of my absolute favorite stations to do because there are live critters involved, so the kids generally get very excited about that. And it just kind of there's a lot of free explore time, so it's just, yeah, it's a fun station. I want to start by acknowledging that we are on the traditional indigenous land of the Duwamish people and the Coast Salish people. So there are over 32 distinct tribes that have lived here since time immemorial, and including the Duwamish tribe specifically in this area, as well as the Suquamish tribe and the Muckleshoot people. So yeah, so much of the knowledge that we are going to be talking about today comes from traditional knowledge. So we want to honor the tribes, the land itself, the waters, native tribal councils, and the knowledge and what we're going to be doing today. So yeah, so I'm going to start with just kind of an overview of the station, kind of the timing, the general flow, and then we were, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm Stephanie, and I actually helped create this lesson, so I can answer a lot of questions about the bugs, and there is some extra information at the end, so we'll be here to answer questions. But yeah, so I'll let Hannah kind of talk about the setup.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the overview of the station, then we'll demonstrate a lesson as if you all are the group of 6th graders and we're the educators, and then we will kind of go, after that we'll kind of go into specifics and answer any questions that you all have. So yeah, so the way the station works is it's a 40-minute station, and so the breakdown is kind of you'll start as a whole group, the whole class will come out, you'll be in their schoolyard or wherever, and you'll kind of gather them together and do a 5-minute introduction. And so that's where you're kind of introducing some of the content. And then we will break into 4 groups. And so right now we have these 2 tables set up. You can imagine that there will be 4 of these tables. So yeah, and then there will be about 20 to 25 minutes of time to explore the insects and identify. And yeah, so you want to leave as much time as you can for that. And then leave 10 minutes of discussion time at the end, which is when you'll come back together. So they'll be divided up into 4 groups for the time when they're working at these stations, and then come back together as a whole class at the end to do the discussion with this board, because there will be one board that the whole class will share, and this is where you're kind of recording the data that they're collecting as they identify the insects in the stream. So yeah, a couple things I want to point out is that we have the curriculum for you all. There's kind of a 1-pager of the objectives of the lesson. So for those of you who this might be new content for, don't worry about saying exactly everything that we say today. There's a lot, and so you can kind of look at that page of objectives, and that's really what we want to focus on. We also kind of divided up the lesson just as we wanted to do, so you'll be working with your educator groups, and you can do that however you see fit. And yeah, then we'll try to kind of demonstrate some of the tips and tricks for working with ELL students or multilingual students, and yeah, students with different learning styles. But there's also that list of yeah, kind of tips and tricks that I definitely recommend taking a look at as well. Anything else?
The timing.
Oh yeah.
So when we are doing the hands-on activity, because you know you're going to be with the kids and you might not be paying attention to the time, so we will have some volunteers that the station managers or volunteers will give you a 3-minute warning and a 1-minute warning. Actually, that's at the conclusion. So, because you want to hit the points, so when you're doing the 10-minute conclusion, we'll give you the 3-minute and 1-minute warning so that you can make sure you hit the points, the really important points. Yeah, and you might not get through all the content, so I'll show you like the in-depth version and then like a sped up, heightened, like shortened version as well when we model the station. We won't be releasing the class until the teachers say they can go, right? So, yeah. And if there's extra time, we can give you some activities to, like, some extra data to look at. Okay. And we might have some volunteers observing the station, and they're going to be taking notes for like best practices for helping ELL students. So why don't we just kind of pretend like you guys are students? So why don't you come from over there, like as a group, and I'll show you what we do. Do you want to gather like away from the materials? And then I noticed. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie, and I will be your educator today. And we have Hannah as well, and we're going to be teaching you about stormwater pollution and how that can impact the health of the streams that are in our watershed. So, before we start, can I have the chaperones real quick raise your hands? Oh, hello, chaperones. Hello, chaperones. Thank you. We're going to be needing your help because this is a very hands-on activity. So we're going to be relying on you to help keep the students on task. Great. Thank you. Okay, so everybody take a look at this picture. This is a stream that we went to this morning and we took a sample from. Does this stream look healthy to you? Yeah, does this look healthy? Make sure everybody can see.
It's got a lot of rocks.
Yeah, it's got rocks. What else does it have? Some leaves and trees around it. So it looks pretty nice.
Yep, no trash or litter.
No trash or litter. So, what are some ways that scientists can measure the health of a stream? Do you know? How can we tell? Do you guys have any ideas?
How many fish you can catch?
Oh, okay, yeah, a fish sample. Yeah, that's great. What else?
Test the water.
Test the water, yeah, water quality testing. So another way we can test the water is to look at the community of organisms that live in there. Okay, so you might be wondering, how can just these organisms tell us if the water is healthy or not?
What's an organism?
Oh, an organism is like any little creature, anything living, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about these organisms in a minute. But first I want to introduce you to the concept of tolerance, okay? Who's heard of tolerance before? Anybody? What does tolerance mean?
It's like how much you can take.
How much you can take, exactly. So tolerance refers to an organism's ability to survive pollution or warming temperatures or stressors like that, okay? Intolerance is the opposite. So if you're intolerant, you can't survive stress. So raise your hand if you have a really clean, pristine room at home. Your room is spotless, you got, you know, your papers are filed away nicely. Okay, you all represent the very intolerant organisms, okay? Raise your hand if you have a really messy room at home. You got laundry on the floor, you got books everywhere. Okay, you all represent the very tolerant organisms, okay? And, you know, you guys actually thrive in the dirty waters, okay? You guys like it, and there's a lot of you. Okay, so raise your hand if you have kind of an in-between messy and an in-between kind of clean. And maybe sometimes, you know, you like your room clean, but it gets messy, and then you have to clean it up. Okay, yes, so you all represent the somewhat tolerant or intolerant organisms, and there's a lot of these in-between guys. And so when we look at what's present in the stream, and there's the intolerant organisms and tolerant organisms and how many there are, we can kind of calculate a score for the stream. So that's what we're going to do, but before we actually look at the organisms, Hannah's going to tell you a little bit more about these organisms. Oh, yes.
Okay, so this is what we're going to be looking at today. These are our aquatic macroinvertebrates. Has anyone heard of aquatic macroinvertebrates before? Awesome. All right. So
I know what aquatic means. It means water.
great. Oh, excellent. Yeah, so we are going to be kind of breaking these words down a little bit. So let's start with macroinvertebrate. Let's actually break that word into two words. And we'll just start with macro. So macro is the opposite of micro. So what do you think that means? If they're macroinvertebrates?
Big.
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 Yeah.
I can see them.
You could see
Yeah, exactly. So they're not exactly like huge, right? But they are big enough that we can see them without a microscope. So, okay, we've got big enough that you can see them. What about invertebrate? So even that's kind of a big word. So let's break that down. What about vertebra? Have you heard of the word vertebra? Maybe I see a few nods here. So everyone kind of feel your backbone right here, right? Your backbone is made of vertebra, right? So we are vertebrates. We have backbones. And so yeah, these are invertebrates. So that means that they don't have a backbone. They have what's called an exoskeleton. Their skeletons are on the outside. They have a hard protective shell, but no backbone. So that's where that term comes from, macroinvertebrate. And then one of you said you know what aquatic means. Would you like to share?
Water.
Water, yes, absolutely. They live in the water. So we've got large enough that you can see, no backbone, animals that live in the water.
And this is benthic, and that means just the bottom of the water. Benthic means bottom dwelling.
Yeah, so something cool about these guys is that many of them are the larval or baby stages of some insects that you might recognize. So who's seen a dragonfly before? Awesome. So we do have, let's see, where is it on here? Here we go. Here is a baby dragonfly. And actually they spend most of their lives in the larval or young stage, living underwater. And then one day they kind of crawl out onto a rock. They unzip their exoskeleton where they've been, yeah, pretty wild, right? So they have wings and they fly away. And this is, they actually only spend maybe, a few days as a dragonfly when we see them most, but they spend much of their lives underwater. So that's a lot of the bugs that we'll see today are the larval stages of insects. So like mosquitoes also spend part of their time in water.
We also have maybe like flatworms and aquatic worms, so those are also aquatic invertebrates.
Yeah, so there's a variety of different things that we'll see. And one of the reasons why we study these guys is because they're part of a larger food web, and they are very important for some things that we like to eat and see in our environment. So does anyone here like to eat salmon? Awesome. So salmon love to eat these guys when they live in the streams and rivers.
You mean when I eat salmon, I eat those things?
Well, you're eating the thing that eats these guys, yes. So in essence, yes. Yeah, so, right, and there's also birds, which we enjoy watching in our environment, or maybe eating like ducks. And yeah, so they are part of a larger food web. Or like, who here likes when we see eagles? Anyone like to see eagles? Right? So eagles are also connected to this food web because they eat fish, which eat these guys. So lots of connections.
What's a food web? That's a great question. Can anybody explain what a food web is? So,
I know what a spider web looks like.
yeah, a spider web has all these connections, right? So food web is where like a very small base of the food chain, the bottom of the food chain, gets eaten by something bigger, it gets eaten by something bigger. So it's all connected and different things eat different things. So sometimes we think of it as a chain and sometimes we think of it as a web, but it's kind of the same thing. Okay, so this is where our investigation begins. So we're going to go to the tables and we're going to actually sort and identify these bugs. Okay, so remember these are living organisms and they're aquatic, so they need to be in water the whole time. So please be gentle with them. We're gonna return them to the stream. So chaperones, please help us divide the students up into two or three people. Or there's 12?
Yeah.
3 or 4 people. Okay, so let's get into groups of 3 or 4 and actually gather right here real quick and then I'll show you all the tools that we have. Okay, so can everybody see the tools here? Gather around so you can see the tools. So this tub, let's wait for the video. Okay. So this tub in the middle has our sample from the stream. So what you're going to do is you're going to look for movement, okay? Oh, there's something moving. You're going to gently scoop it in with the spoon. And we have these bug boxes or viewing boxes. You're going to put them in there. And they have little magnifying lens, so you can put that on top. And see if you can identify by comparing it to the pictures we have on the mats. And also comparing it to our ID card here, okay? Now, remember the tolerance we talked about? So there's group 1, very intolerant, group 2, intolerant, group 3, tolerant, and group 4, very intolerant. So what you want to do is sort your bugs into the right places in the petri dishes, and then have one team member come up to our pollution tolerance board up here. And you're going to find the bug that matches the one you found. Okay, make sure you find the bug. Okay, and then you're going to find it and you're going to stick it in the right category of the board. So who can tell me what category the mayflies are in?
Very intolerant.
Very intolerant. So we're going to put it under 1. Okay, now you're going to come back. And you're going to keep doing the samples, and we're going to just try to see all the different types of organisms we have as a class. Okay, so let's get started so we have a lot of time to look at the organisms. So go ahead, everybody, get into your groups, and go ahead and we'll have about 20 minutes to sample. And we'll come around and help you identify the bugs. Oh! Very well. Whoa. That was a good bug. That was spider. What? Ooh, yeah. So how many tails does it have?
He was floating on top.
Yeah.
Oh, there's something too swimming around. Cool. Get that guy. Yeah. I think it's a mayfly, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Something interesting. This is actually the exoskeleton.
Did you catch that guy?
Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't have.
I think it's a spider though.
So the difference between the stonefly and the mayfly, you can see
Does
there's
it
like
look like a spider to you?
Right.
things sticking out there, or 3.
Yeah. Doesn't have any.
Yeah, because it's just the skeleton, so it's kind of hard to say. Yeah, but that's really what I'm trying to
I'm gonna go mark one on the board. I'm gonna go mark a mayfly. So should I just put
I think it's I think it's maybe it's a stonefly.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that the best way to tell the difference.
Long.
Yeah, the best way to tell the difference is the 3 things kind of sticking out of the head. There's 2 for the stonefly, and 3 for the mayfly. Sometimes there's
Maybe floating on top, swimming around.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there are. That's, I think, similar to the mayfly worm-looking thing. Oh, is that it? So this is a good time to use that one. Yeah, so it's going to be a whole class divided by 4. So I'm guessing that there's probably like 25 to 30 in a class. Yeah, in 4 grades. And we'll still have 2 stations at each table like this. So, yeah. So probably like 3-ish on each side, 3 to 4 on each side of the table. 6-ish.
Yeah, stoneflies up there.
Goes up too well.
Yeah, so I think there's actually 3. You're in the working with team of 3. Okay. So it's kind of up to you to decide how to. And yeah, I don't know if you're with your, might not be with your educators right now. And then, is this the other, okay, yeah. So sorry, what is it? Yeah, awesome. Cool, I'm glad that we found that guy. I was hoping that we would.
Any last minute cool finds?
Yeah, over my head.
What'd you find?
This dude.
Oh, where is he still here?
He's in this one.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's make sure we get that guy on the board.
He's
this
on
is
the
a good
board.
time to kind of return any bugs that we have.
Okay, everybody, we're gonna clean up our station real quick. So let's gently return the bugs into the main sample bin.
Oh wow. Is he here? Oh wow.
Yeah, he told me.
Would you like to step inside?
So what is he? How did you know?
Once you're done with that, please
because when he
come
starts
gather
actually
around
moving,
the
then-
pollution tolerance board.
Moving, and then
Okay.
see that guy.
Oh wow.
Ideally, the activity tables will be a little bit farther from the pollution board so they're not distracted when we're doing the discussion. Because it's really hard to pull them away.
So the worm-like thing that we is the aquatic.
As the aquatic worm, yes. So we're going to talk about our results. So make sure you can see the board. So even though we did have, multiple organisms, obviously, we only had one of each card. So these just represent all of the bugs we found. So we're gonna.
And so the number that's on each card does not represent how many was found.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we're gonna talk about the pollution tolerance index. So an index is a way to categorize different features like tolerance to pollution. So we have these different categories, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very intolerant all the way to very tolerant. And we're gonna actually rank how many of the bugs we had. So I'm gonna have you decide, was there a lot of these? We're gonna give it a 3. If there was a medium amount, we're gonna give it a 2. And if there was a lot, or just a few, we're gonna give it a 1. Okay, so mayfly, and I have a worksheet, and we have these printed, so you will all get these in your kits as well. I just didn't have this made before the curriculum was printed, so apologies for that. So the worksheet will help you do the math pretty easily. So how many mayflies did you find? Was it a 3, a 2, or 1? Was there a lot? A lot, yeah. So we're gonna give that a 3. How about stoneflies? Did you find, I see that somebody found a stonefly. Was there a lot?
Yeah.
You found,
Close.
did our group find any?
No.
No, we didn't find any, so your group found some. So let's give it a 2, okay? Because you said you found some. Okay, and then dragonfly, damselfly, I think this might be in the wrong category. So we gotta make sure they're in the right category. So these guys should be in the intolerant. And so we're gonna move to group 2. So how many, was there a lot of these or just like 1 or 2?
Dragonfly and damselfly are in group 3.
Oh, was it group 3? Oh, they're tolerant, sorry. Okay, they're in group 3. So, yes, you're right. They, how many of them did you find?
I think I probably found 1 or 2, but I skipped over them for the mayflies because they're very similar in the thing.
So maybe just 1 we found?
I think I found one maybe.
You found 1? Maybe that's only a couple, so we'll just say it's a rare one. So we'll just give it a 1. And then let's go back to group 2. So scuds, was there a lot or was there just 1? I think there was just 1 in our group. So we're gonna give that a 1 because there's not too many. And then let's see, the helgramites, how many, was there a lot of
I think
those?
there's about a 2 based on
About a 2. Okay, so we'll give that a 2. Okay, so, and then one last category, the aquatic worm. Was there a lot or was there just a few? There was quite a few. Was it more than the mayflies, do you think, or?
I don't think did we see any
I
in
didn't
ours?
see any.
I don't think we had
I didn't
any in
see
ours.
You had a lot? Let's say like a 2. We'll give it a 2, like in between. Okay. So
Wait, so
now,
I'm interested really quick.
Yes.
So, are these from different locations?
no, these are all from the same spot. But
Like
you know,
literally just the same.
Well, you also got to think of densities. Like if the top part of the water is going to have a lot more of
and just the
different
way we
things in the bottom.
divided it out.
Right. I like
Okay.
scooped it out.
But they are all from the same stream, all from the same sample.
This is why you do multiple samples.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so now we're gonna add up the group 1 score and we're gonna multiply all the rankings by 4. So we're gonna go 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, 12 plus 8 is 20. So that's 20 down here. Sorry, my pen's not working. We do have a chalkboard to use as well if you want to use a chalkboard. And we might laminate these so you can use the laminated version. Helgramite 2 times 3. So we're multiplying the intolerant group by 3. So let's see.
Why are
this
you doing
is to
that
weight.
multiplication?
We're weighting the sensitivity. So this is just part of the calculation. And this part gets a little complicated, so it's okay if the students don't totally grasp this, and you can kind of talk about it in a general sense, but I want to do the thorough version first so you guys can see that, and then if we don't have time, we'll do the shorter version too. Okay, so real quick, so with these, the scud was a 1, so we're multiplying the scud. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, and then for the Helgramite is 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, 6 plus 3 is 9. Okay, so that's group 2. Group 3, we're going to multiply it by 2. So with the dragonfly, we only had a 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. And we just add that, so that's 2. Group 4, the aquatic worm was a 2, and we multiply these by 1. And so that's just 2 times 1 is 2, and the group score is 2. Now we add all the group scores together to get the total score. So 20 plus 9 plus 1 plus 2 is 32. Good job. Okay, so now compare that to the assessment chart down here. So if it was a 32, where does it fall under?
Fair.
Fair water quality. Okay, so we can see that even though you know, in the picture, it looked really like nice in the picture, right? There's a lot of greenery and shrubs, but the score indicates that it's not excellent or it's not good, it's fair, okay? So that's just the score we got, and we're gonna be collecting samples from all the streams that we sample so we can compare the different results. So I'm gonna have Hannah explain a little bit more about how these scores, so how the streams got to the condition that they're in right now. So what's in the watershed that's impacting this score, okay?
Yeah, so we're gonna think a little bit about how, even though the stream looks really nice in that one snapshot, what could possibly be like invisible sources of pollution that we might not be able to see with our bare eyes. So has anyone seen one of these before? Think about if you have seen one, think about where you might have seen one of these.
Is that a storm drain?
Storm drain, yes. Anyone else recognize the storm drain? Awesome. Where have you seen one of these?
On the road, on the street.
On the road?
In the gutter.
In the gutter, yeah. Anywhere else?
Walkways, maybe?
Yeah, maybe in a walkway.
Parking lot.
Parks. Parking lot. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these probably exist, anywhere where there is pavement, right? Because it rains just like it is right now, and that water has to go somewhere. It can't go through pavement. It's an impermeable surface. And like in a forest or in a park where it's soil on the ground and plants, it can just soak right in. But on a paved road, it cannot. So people engineered storm drains, right, in order to keep the water off of our roads so that our roads don't flood every single time it rains. That would be chaos when we need to go places. So we have these. But think about what types of sources of pollution might be on our roads or in our parking lots that could get into these drains.
Oil
remember,
from cars?
these go straight into the stream without getting filtered. They don't get filtered before they get into the water.
Why not?
Yeah.
'Cause
So
it would be very difficult. Inexpensive.
So I heard someone say dog poop,
Oil.
oil. So has anyone ever seen like a rainbow sheen on a puddle? Yeah. So that's oil from maybe from cars or trucks.
Probably stuff people are putting in their yards.
Yeah.
Fertilizers.
Yeah, fertilizers, like this beautiful green lawn out here, right? Sometimes our lawns require fertilizers or plants require fertilizers to grow or pesticides. So, yeah, dog poop is actually, you know, it's natural, but it actually has a lot of bacteria that can go into the storm drain and make our animals sick. So all of that water, you know, goes into our streams and rivers. While sometimes we do filter it through, like, you know, bioswales and rain gardens, that's not the majority of our infrastructure or the ways that our roads and are built. So yeah, a lot of the times these go straight into the nearest stream or river. So when we think about the water that's in our stream, while right here it looks really nice, there might be a pipe that comes from a place where it is mostly paved, carrying all of these kinds of pollution that you all just thought about, and maybe even other stuff too, like plastics or soap from washing our cars. Yeah, so
Worse things that we aren't even thinking about. Chemicals.
oh yes, our tires kind of wear down as we drive, kind of like using the eraser of a pencil, and so all of that dust can go into here and go into our streams and rivers.
Those what people have dropped on the road.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
antifreeze or something.
yeah.
Cigarettes.
Medications maybe that we can either metabolize and discrete, or we can you know, flush down the toilet. Some people do that,
Yeah,
so we
just think
definitely
of
want to
someone peeing
discourage
on the
people
side of the
from flushing medication down the toilet.
But the storm drain goes to a different place than.
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
Yes, so they are not a connected system for a very good reason. When it rains a lot, you don't want to risk your sewage system overflowing. So, yeah, so they're not necessarily connected, although in some places they are.
Treatment plant doesn't treat medication and chemicals, right?
Yeah, so different problems have different solutions too. So yeah, that's, you know, why we're here at StormFest, right? We're thinking about things that we can do in our daily lives in order to prevent these types of things from going into our storm drains. Like, we can pick up after our pets. If you have pets, if you have a dog, you can pick up and make sure it gets into the garbage. Or you can take your car to a car wash instead of, you know, washing it on the street in your driveway where the soapy water can go down a storm drain.
Or buy biodegradable soap.
Yeah, or buy biodegradable soap, or use organic fertilizers in your yard, things like that.
Help your parents pull weeds so they don't have to use pesticides and fertilizers. Those are some actions you can take at home.
Although,
Yeah.
just to let you know, fertilizers, did a lot of research about whether I needed to use a fertilizer on my lawn. And fertilizers help the grass to grow enough so that they crowd out the weeds. So even if you pull the weeds, you'll still get, you know, seeds at a time. So that's one issue there. Or you can let your lawn go into what would be a Pacific Northwest lawn, which is lots and lots of moss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks a bit nicer.
Yeah.
Stays green no longer.
I think that wraps up our lesson, right?
Yeah.
So if we had, I mean, we found lots of a certain animal, but
Yes.
that doesn't count for anything.
It did,
In our
because when
score.
we found a lot, remember, we multiplied it by 3 to then factor that.
Oh, so I didn't see that, but you did it on the paper.
Yeah, sorry, it's on the
Okay.
paper. And
I get it.
sorry, it got all wet, but you guys will each get a copy of this. Yeah, who's this very
It
wet?
seems like pretty much as long as it's not 4, then you can have some of the berry intolerance in it. Right? Because we hit fair with our scale despite having a majority mayfly.
Yeah, and that's just, yeah, if we had more diversity, we would have gotten a higher score too, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So, do you typically find very tolerant could be anywhere, but do you find them more?
Nope.
The very tolerant. like
And if you're very
worms.
talented, you could be in clean water or dirty
Yes,
water.
just
So-
because there's very
why they're
tolerant
weighted.
doesn't mean that it's polluted, but
That's
if
why
there's
they're
a
weighted
lot
as
of them, if there's an abundance of them, and if they're dominating the community versus the very intolerant, then that is an indicator of poor water quality.
So that's why the weight is the way.
Yeah, so that's why we weight it.
Yeah,
with
I am
the 4,
interested
3, 2,
in
1.
at some point in time in the future getting some more information about where the weighting comes from, because unfortunately when you just tell kids, well, it's weighted this way because we decided, kids start thinking, well, science is kind of like magic. You just pick out numbers in the
Well, actually,
air.
that's the logic to it. The very tolerant ones can show up
No, I'm
anywhere.
talking about sixth graders who are going to think that if you don't
Yeah.
actually have an explanation for them.
And you can also say, so in King County and the Puget Sound, there is a system of collecting the macroinvertebrate samples systematically and in a standardized way so that we can compare results all across the county, and different jurisdictions will collect samples. So there's a big database called PSSB, Puget Sound Stream Benthos, and there's a link to the website on your curriculum if you feel free to explore that if you want to. But yeah, so this is an example. If you have time at the end of your lesson, you can show them real scientists collected this, and this is data, and you can see in 2015 Des Moines Creek, that we actually sampled from Des Moines Creek today, was rated poor, okay? And then Cedar River, which is a really intact, beautiful watershed where Seattle gets its drinking water from, and it's got a huge area of protected watershed. It scored 75 in the good range, okay? So you can see kind of, you can talk about why the scores are so different, even though, you know, the Des Moines Creek looks pretty on the outs, you know, from this picture, but it turns out all the things upstream in the watershed is impacting the score.
You can't see pollution in the water. You can see all the plants and everything around it, which is nice, but
And it's important.
the water could be
yeah.
nasty and it still have all those plants and trees around it.
Yeah, but without the plants, we wouldn't have as many bugs either.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, we're teaching the kids about the effects not just from the streams, but to the Puget Sound. Can we talk about can these bugs exist once they get into salt water?
You can, if that comes up, you can say, yeah, there are macroinvertebrates in the water, in the marine environment too, and they're slightly different. And then there's some that kind of live in the in-between stage, like this.
Brackish.
This creek is kind of tidally influenced, so that we get a little bit of marine macroinvertebrates here.
Yeah, because everything's like, I think 2018 was like they finally got like the scale thing, so we got it from a stream, but it ends up in Puget Sound.
Yeah, and I think the watershed model will kind of do
Oh,
that
yeah.
connection a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
So I'm asking this question as an educator, not as a
Yeah.
student, but so I really like your focus on how you communicate to the students that they have a responsibility in this, and I've been thinking a lot about this as an adult, and how to teach kids that you can do something. You're not, you have the power to do something. And so I thought, so what part of your lesson addressed that? Was it it's during this time, obviously, and it was was it the discussion or the question you just asked, what can you do to avoid putting pollutants down?
What actions you can take at home to prevent stormwater from getting polluted. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was teaching, one of the things that I taught my second graders about was how you can, you reduce, you reuse, recycle. But there was a fourth R, and it was re-educate. And I used to spend a lot of time on that with my kids, because I said, you might not think that you have anything to add to this, but you could go home and tell your parents what you learned today, and say, maybe we shouldn't use this or this product or this product or this product. We need to find a better alternative. So I really liked how you focus on that in your curriculum, and I think it's really important, because I think a lot of kids feel kind of powerless these days. They say, the adults made this mess, it's their responsibility to clean it up, and yet so I think it's cool to teach kids that they do have some power in helping the situation and a responsibility.
Maybe I missed the words and so on, but I'm not sure you made a really strong connection between pollutants and why it changes the diversity and then counts. You know, so make a connection and say, what do pollutants do? They start to kill off the intolerant things. They start to harm them. They, you know, something that makes a stronger connection. So then you can go back to the connection we were talking about saying, if you quit doing this, then these numbers will stay the same, and then they will get better.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, because when we did the intro, I kind of talked about the tolerance and intolerance and how they'll die and move away.
Tolerant and intolerant of what?
Yeah.
And so I think
and then
that
pollution,
if we make a
and then
connection
make that
between
connection at the end too. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
So just out of curiosity, in 4th grade we used to come here and do the testing of the turbidity, the salmon.
Salmon heroes. Yeah.
Yeah, do they still do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Have they come
Here's
after
another
COVID?
thing.
They did salmon heroes
so
during
we've
COVID.
been doing we've done Salmon Heroes for the past 2 years virtually, so it's been a slightly different program. But yeah, that continues, and I don't know if necessarily every 6th grader that comes will have done Salmon Heroes, because I'm not exactly sure if like every school that I don't think that every school that feeds into the different middle schools that we are going to will have done that program. But hopefully, there are some connections there too.
One thing I forgot, we didn't do this in the intro, but you can when you're showing the poster. This is the actual bugs, so you can show them an example of them. If you flip it upside down, you can go around and maybe have a volunteer show them.
Or maybe you pass it around.
Yeah,
Have them pass it around to each group while they're while you're demoing.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, and especially like when they're working during the activity, they can come and look at these bugs too.
Yeah.
I might wonder what is
Okay.
Samples of the bugs, or the invertebrates, I should say.
Just
They're
kind of a
small, so you can
demonstration.
figure it out.
Example. Yeah. Anything else? So now we're gonna have you in your groups and practice your lesson and practice going through it for the next hour, I believe.
Yeah, and also the curriculum is printed over there. It's like underneath the E of keeping it dry right now, but if you want to grab one of those, take a look at that. Yeah, and we're here to help as well.
And then after you have enough time to practice, then you'll teach your portion to the one of the watershed groups. Does that make sense?
Practicing means that one of us is going to teach to the group.
So yes, you and your partner, or if there's a group of 3, you will decide how you want to split up the presentation. So you can say, okay, you do the intro and I'll do the conclusion, or we just kind of alternate like Hannah and I did. So you kind of decide between your partner how you want to do it, and then you have this hour to practice that. Go through it. And then you also practice setting it up. So we have some tables for you, and you're gonna learn how to set it up as well.
How's that gonna work when we're at the school? So like, we show up to the school, and what are we doing?
So station managers should be there to help set up and guide you with
Will
that.
there be more than one educator at each station?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's 2 or 3.
2 or 3 at each
Yeah.
station,
great.
plus
Okay.
2 station managers, so you'll have
And then the one
people.
session is an hour.
One class.
One class in an hour, and then there's multiple.
40 minutes.
40-minute class.
And there's how many classes?
Seems like such a short period of time.
Yeah, so we obviously spent a lot of time
Yeah,
going
we
through
did.
everything.
It took a little
It
longer.
will not be, you'll not have that much time. But, it's up to you, like, what you want to focus on, what you want to include, keeping in mind the objectives.
And so how many classes in one of the, like 4 classes or something?
Each day.
Oh, yeah, I am not exactly sure
It was
about
like
that.
1 or 2, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's more than that, because it's like,
It was just like 1 or 2.
Yeah. There is a schedule
Well,
somewhere.
it lasts the whole school day, so if you're 40 minutes pop with break time in between, I'd imagine 3 or 4 at least.
I think there's 1 or 2 sections, but both classes will be taught something.
Well, I mean, this is a pretty important question for scheduling this job.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a better question for either Kelly
Yeah, we
or...
can talk to Kelly about that. Kelly has the schedule.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Any questions about the curriculum, I guess? And then logistics, we'll ask Kelly for those questions. Yeah.